Fenton Jagdeo Jr. advocates for radical curiosity, innovative leadership thinking, and forward momentum in ways that ensure unique personal and professional development experiences for your whole team. He's got a rare combination of experience as a startup executive, a civic leader on large public boards, and an advisor to large corporations. He's currently the youngest person ever to sit on the TTC Board of Directors, the Toronto Transit Commission, and his company Faculty Makeup for Men has gained the attention of Esquire, the Wall Street Journal, and GQ, as well as millions in seed funding by the Estee Lauder companies, making Fenton one of the very few Black Canadians to raise capital for a venture. He's an Ivy HBA graduate and was previously a board member of the world's largest neighborhood library system, the Toronto Public Library, something near and dear to me, where he was responsible for leading strategic planning and the library's 5-year strategy. His management consultant experience includes roles at Deloitte, Monitor, and Dublin, and independent consulting worldwide with senior government and business leaders, helping them with the toughest innovation and business challenges with a design thinking and leadership mindset. He's also co-founder of the BIPOC Mentor Network, a Better People network driven to democratize opportunity for BIPOC and LGBTQ+ students. All of this having grown up on Jane Street and attending what many would consider one of the roughest high schools in Toronto, giving him lived experience when he speaks about resilience, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the need for a radical curiosity approach to our future. Please join me in welcoming Fenton Jagdeo.
Thank you so much, Teresa, and to the extended NSB team. I'm excited to be speaking today. And Teresa, you did a fantastic job on that introduction. I've got a few slides for the intro, but thankfully, because of you, I get to speed through that so we can get straight to the actual content. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my presentation in classic management consulting style. I decided to build a deck that I can showcase some ideas to our audience today. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. So for lack of the cliche, please give me a moment to share my screen. Okay, let's get into this. I am incredibly excited to be talking about why your future depends on strategy and on curiosity by extension. My name is Fenton. As Teresa kindly pointed out, she put down an incredible amount of accolades that I think I've been able to accomplish. I'm a man of many passions, a man of many talents, a man of many subjects, despite the fact that it mostly is a cover-up for a lack of wanting to commit. But I think in the last couple of years, I've had some pretty cool experiences that I think culminate together to what we're talking about today, from working at Freshie as the youngest member of management to working at Monitor in Dublin in consulting capacities, where I assisted in ways to guide organizations through corporate strategy initiatives, in addition to innovation strategy initiatives as we know them today. TPL is a big, important element of my growth and what I've done over the last couple of years, and being able to help that organization where I got the chance to oversee 4,000 employees and a budget of around $350 million and help guide the strategic plan for the next 5 years is something that is wholesome to me, and a document and scenario plan that is being used by libraries all around the world. Faculty, another incredible project that I'm privileged to be working on, helping to democratize the idea that makeup can be used by anyone, and that a $500 billion market doesn't have to be gendered, and consumption doesn't have to be gendered at the same time. And getting back to that idea of helping in civic government and engagement, working with the TTC to ensure that 1.5 million Torontonians can get from point A to point B in a timely fashion that works is something that I am continuously eager to help out in our everyday lives. And of course, when I do have the time to continue to not commit to things, I do like to do some consulting, some advisory, and some investing out of my business studio called Jagdeo Ventures. So I also like to talk, and I like to have conversations with organizations and governments and people who are thinking about the future of their organization. So today we're going to focus on that, the future as told through strategy and curiosity. And this begins with a narrative that we all know too well, a narrative that starts with the world and how it is changing all around us. From the culture that we are operating in, that operating system, to the macroeconomic conditions where we play, to the consumers who are digesting our products and our information, down to the competitive forces that allow us to work in this world and hopefully create good work for people, all of these externalities are impacting us on a daily basis. And though this changes on a daily basis, today some of those conditions that we have to deal with are very present. From a cultural perspective, when it comes to how we actually consume information or think about the future of our planet, sustainability and environmentalism is such an important thing. And companies now can't turn a blind eye to it. In addition to not focusing on the politics of the world that we are in, it is expected that companies put a stake in the ground for better or for worse. We are recovering from one of the worst financial hits in the last 10 years. And what that comes with is a recovery curve for some that looks incredible. Americans and Canadians, North Americans alike, have saved over $2.1 trillion because of the fact that their leisure spending has gone down. And venture capital is at a record high, $288 billion being put towards the craziest ideas that are going to make the world a better place. But if you're at the bottom of that K recovery curve, you tend to see a very different story. One where capital is not as available, where jobs are being reduced, where people are losing their opportunities to work and take care of themselves. And it's something that we have to consider. Consumers are changing as we speak. As a millennial, once upon a time, I was the shiny object that companies would gawk after to make sure that I was buying their products. But no, not anymore. The Instagrammable generation is no more. And now we care about Gen Z, a very particular consumer that understands whether a company is lying to them, that's very demanding, that's digitally native and has very different philosophies than my father and myself and those before me. And of course, let's not forget that the information that's available at our fingertips, in addition to the technology in this world, is making it so much easier for companies, organizations, and governments to come into areas that they may have not played in ever before, because the competitive risk is becoming lower and lower. This is the best time ever to become an entrepreneur. And look, I'm not going to read what's on the screen, but I think you all get the point. If we ignore these realities and we don't do anything to protect ourselves from the impending future and the impending variables that impact us, well, we're kind of screwed. But not to worry. This is why we plan. And this is why we think about strategy as a way to guide us to an end zone where we are successful and we are proficient. Now, strategy, in addition to a bunch of other business terms, have been turned into jargon, things that actually don't mean anything. But through my experiences, strategy is important because strategy is a set of interconnected choices and positions that positions an organization to absolutely win. And when you think about strategy, think about it as a cascade of 5 different questions that organizations alike are asking themselves. The thing about strategy, however, that we have to realize is that the decisions and the choices we make is going to be at the expense of others. If we choose to put a product out in the market that is blue instead of red, both may be very good strategies, but we choose to do one at the expense of others, given the research or the political or the competitive environment that we are part of. So to plan for all these variables, we plan and we think about strategy as a cascade of these different choices. The first one being our winning aspiration. What is our winning aspiration as an organization? Is it monetary? Is it revenue? Is it to generate revenue? Is it to build some form of social conscious? Whatever that is, the winning strategy will guide everything that we choose to do. Where to play is another important question. In my world, where to play comes down to the geography that you hope to compete in, the actual business vertical that you're hoping to make money from, or in addition to that, the type of products that you're hoping to sell. These are important questions that organizations today have to ask themselves, regardless of regardless of where they hope to play and how to win. What's the value proposition that we're going to be using in order to win in our arena against our competitors? If we're a company that sells water, are we going to be the Voss of the world, where we sell water in a glass container at a premium price? Or are we going to be the Nestle's of the world, where you can buy a flat of 40 bottles for $2? I think, I'm sure inflation has impacted that, but let's go with that for the moment. And finally, underpinning all of that are the capabilities that are required for us to get to point A, from point A to point B in our quest to ensuring that our value proposition and our winning aspiration is successful. And of course, the management systems that underlie it. And the thing about strategy, and this as a topic, I can talk about this for hours and hours, because I used to do this every single day of my life, and I still do this today in my own entrepreneurial ventures. But I wanted to outline strategy specifically for the 3 questions in the middle. where to play, how to win, and the capabilities that are required. And this is the heart of strategy. These are the questions that we have to ask ourselves and answer for our organizations if we hope to win and if we hope to survive. Now, the problem is when we go to the executives who run these organizations, we are going to be asked to think about things that are innovative, because innovation is a wonderful buzz term that ensures that we are doing things differently, or the creation of something new or viable, unseen in an industry or business. Now, here's the issue. The issue is that innovation and being innovative is harder than ever before. And the beauty of information democracy, which is something that I advocate for on a regular basis, given my work with the library and beyond, the problem with information asymmetry and the problem of having information completely democratized is the fact that it's everywhere. And there's no such thing now as something that is proprietary. There's no such thing as information that is hidden from our competitors. So in today's day and age, because the world has so much information at its fingertips, it makes it difficult for you to do something very unique and very different. So now the world is at a stand stage. We understand that there are variables all around us that are encroaching on how we do our work or how we do things. And though it's important to plan, being innovative is harder than ever. But it's a good thing that curiosity is important. It's a good thing that we should be thinking about curiosity, because at the end of the day, though the heart of strategy is built on innovation, innovation is fueled by being curious. And the organizations that exist on the planet today fail to recognize that. And this is why I'm here to help champion this idea of being radically curious. So what is radical curiosity? Well, radical curiosity is a thought system that encourages you to go deep on a subject matter, completely understanding it and finding ways to build competitive advantages from rich and unique experiences. As we think about it on an individual basis, it means going out, having passions, and doing important things. But in the context of the corporation or the organization, and in the context of innovation culture, what this means is the ability to go out and find novel ideas that are not on the competitive radar. And what this does is it creates a sustainable strategy for you to continue to win regardless of what your winning aspiration is. So that may be a lot, but fear not. I also have a wonderful diagram here that I hope will help articulate what that really means. So imagine that this person is you. It really is me, but for the purposes of this, let's assume it's you. Now, the great thing is that you live and operate and breathe in an industry context that you know so well. The issue is that the world around you, from adjacent industries to tertiary industries, are unknown, and you may know very, very little of it. When we think about innovation today, we think about going and trying to source ideas from areas that are near the edge of our industry, which is not necessarily a bad thing. We are inspired by our competitors, and we are inspired by those who may have come before us in the industry that we operate in. Now, what this kind of innovation does, however, is like a dye being put into a glass of water, it spreads out equally. The issue is that it's limited. In the case of the water, it's limited to the glass. In the case of the organization, it is limited to the industry. And what this does is it prevents you from going beyond incrementalism, incremental innovation. What radical curiosity prescribes is the fact that we should be going deep, like an arrow, into uncharted territories, into uncharted industries, to learn and find novel ideas that are not on the competitive radar. One, because our competitors are not going into these industries to try and find solutions. Now, what does this do for you? This allows you to bring back interesting ideas that have not been thought of before to an industry context that may be so different. And in the same way of using this diagram, what this will help you build is a competitive moat against all the exterior variables, in addition to our friendly competition who we have to compete with. Now, here's the thing. Being radically curious is a mindset that requires a drastic shift of thinking. It is very difficult. For the most part, we as human beings are programmed not to go deep into subject areas that we may not have the same level of expertise in, for fear of not understanding what's happening, for fear of wasting our time, and for fear of not finding solutions, ideas, or new innovations that will guide our thinking. Thankfully, there are tools that can be used to democratize this thought process. And I think over the next 10 minutes, I'd like to share some of those tools with you today at rapid fire, because I don't have all the time in the world with you all today, but hopefully we can set up some time after to make sure that we do that. The first one I want to talk about is the idea of going after precursors. Precursors are insights and ideas from other industries and analogous contexts that provoke new thinking around challenges that other companies, institutions, and organizations may have responded to in the past. The interesting thing about going after precursors is that these precursors allow you to be inspired by innovators and innovations that exist outside of the four walls in which you compete, to not only learn and find the instructive path in which you can take these ideas and transplant them into your own, but to look at these ideas and say, well, hey, what can we learn from that company, that industry that is doing something so well? So for example, if you are in manufacturing and you are looking to find a way to bring down your costs and improve the efficiency in which you get product from point A to point B or to the end customer, maybe you might look at Zara as an example and their ability to take stuff from the Milan runway to the customer in less than a week. You may look at Uber as a way to improve on efficiencies, because as a tech company, they've been able to make transportation as easy and as effective and as smooth as any company on the planet has. The beauty of precursors is that when you're inspired by these companies and these organizations, you start to see the world in a general sense. And that generality reduces the potential orthodoxies, which we'll get to in a second, but the potential orthodoxies that cloud our judgment. Now, of course, we can take novel approaches from our potential competitors. But what I'm encouraging here, and what radical curiosity encourages you to do, is to go outside that arena, to look at common challenges and solutions across different contexts, to see if you can transplant those ideas into new ways of thinking, to go and find analogous situations that might not be exactly the same, but can be instructive in terms of how you process out that problem and solve for that new innovation. And finally, looking at companies or organizations that are completely far away from your own industry and drawing inspiration from it, not necessarily transplanting those ideas, but maybe the thinking might be something that's worthwhile taking back to your team and articulating that as a way to look at the world. Maybe you don't have all the time to look at every single company that exists to learn what their habits and their patterns are. The great thing is that additional tools exist to ensure that we get there. I want to talk about the 10 types of innovation, a pattern of innovation within industries, and one of the most valuable ways to start thinking about transformation. This was designed 20 years ago by some of the greatest innovators that have ever walked the planet. Some I get to call my colleagues and past colleagues. And what they've realized is that after looking at 2,000 different forms of innovation and categorizing it into 3 different groupings, they were able to find a consistent pattern on how innovative ideas are built and emerge into the environment. Configuration is one of those categories, and we like to consider this the inner workings of the business, the back office, if you will. Offering is our second grouping, where when we think about the product or the service that we're selling to a customer, this is what they touch, this is what they feel, and the experience itself, of course, is how that customer interacts with that product or service that we are selling. And the beauty of these 10 types of innovations is that they almost work like a value chain, which is exciting for many executives because that's generally how strategy works, moving from how we think about making money or potentially building social impact all the way to how the customer is engaging with us and who we are. From profit model perspective, you could learn from the world of Harry's, a shaving company, for example, that has turned the subscription model into a way of selling shaving equipment, something completely different. Network effect is the idea that we can take the connections from other industries and bring them together. Structure is the way that we align our talent as well as our assets. Process is thinking about how we come up with proprietary algorithms to get things done. Product performance and product systems are also ways in which we drive innovation, from the features that we're able to build out to the product systems and the connections that we have to analogous products built within the same ecosystem. And of course, thinking about service, channel, brand, and customer engagement as ways to interact with our customers. These are all different types of tactics that we can use to think about innovation that's fueled by curiosity. And under each one of these types, there are tactics that we can employ, almost a dozen to 20 of them, when thinking about doing something fresh and doing something new. And the final thing I want to talk about today is around flipping orthodoxies. And this is one of my favorite ones because each and every single business or organization has a way of doing things that has not changed for the longest time. They're conventional wisdoms that are just conventional. It is what it is. This is the way that we've been doing it forever. We're not going to change it because it's not broken. Orthodoxies are pervasive beliefs that often go unstated and unchallenged in an organization. Now, the problem with these orthodoxies is that they shape strategy and potentially create blind spots on how to be curious about the world. One of my favorite orthodoxies is one that I'm sure we've all experienced very personally, is that if you have the smallest number of items in a basket at a grocery store, you get to go to the smallest line. Another orthodoxy is that we put on our shoes 1 feet at a time. These are things that just exist. The issue, though, is that it clouds our judgment when it comes to being curious about the world and, by extension, building out new opportunities and new innovations. So think about all the orthodoxies that exist in your industries. Maybe you're in publishing, maybe you are in manufacturing. And whenever you come to the conclusion of what these orthodoxies are, ask yourself these crazy questions. What if you could imagine life without that conventional wisdom? What if you went and decided to ask some consumers what it would be like if you didn't have that specific form of conventional wisdom? Or maybe you ask yourself, what would life be like if we did the complete opposite of that? And truth be told, these are crazy questions. And at faculty, for example, a company that I get to lead every day, we ask ourselves that question every day. What if we change the script on makeup and tried to make it accessible to those that are experiencing masculinity? A group of people who've been left out of this industry for hundreds of years, thinking about the orthodoxies and trying to flip them in crazy ways allows you to think about the world differently and in a very, very curious light. And of course, whenever you're thinking about new ideas, new innovations as brought on through radical curiosity, putting it through the balance breakthrough, which is a success barometer of new ideas and innovations, will be the determinant of whether or not these ideas are actually good. At the end of the day, we can't throw mud to the wall and see what is able to stick. And we always focus on desirability. Is that idea desirable? Will it be used by people? Is it feasible? Do we have the ability to make it happen given our constraints? And is it viable, i.e., does it give us the return that we're looking for? So look, folks, all these variables that are impacting the way that we operate in our lives, in our industry, they are going to be there forever. We can solve these by thinking strategically about how we make decisions. The issue is that innovation is so much harder today than it is and as there ever has been. And that's why, in order to be truly innovative, you must be radically curious about the world, because it fuels innovation, and helps you think about the world in a very, very different light. And what this again allows you to do is build this incredible moat grounded in precursors, the 10 types, flipping orthodoxies, and of course, the balance breakthrough, in addition to other frameworks and ways of thinking that will allow you to completely win in the industry that you are operating in. That's all I have for you all today. I hope that was helpful and insightful, and I wish you the best of luck in your journeys.
Thank you so much, Fenton, for that journey through curiosity, strategy, and innovation. I really appreciated how you provided practical ways of thinking about how to be curious and how to be innovative, because sometimes it can feel difficult to figure out how to grasp that. So thank you so much for this. And we do have some time for some questions if you're still good with that.
Of course.
Great, thank you. Feel free to include any of your questions in the chat and we will try to get to them before the end. Can you touch on how can leaders in an organization overcome some of the challenges that that arise when you're trying to be innovative and the organization has its own kind of immune system that likes the predictability and likes the path that it's on?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Teresa. And I think there are a couple of ways that anybody in any organization can go about building the infrastructure for innovation. I think the first thing is starting at the top. It's really showcasing to leadership or the CEOs that we work for that the world is changing. And if we don't do something about it, here is what the world could look like. And I think being able to articulate that in a way that is driven by numbers, analysis, and research will help start the seeds for that. But at the end of the day, innovation, like every other metric, needs to be tied to a measurement. And what I found over my years of doing consulting is that there are no metrics for innovation. People and their compensation and the way that they are measured at organizations are not actually tied to innovation. So how about in our individual teams, we build measures to help compensate people, whether it is monetarily or through good guidance on their ways of being innovative. And if we start to measure innovation, we start to incorporate it in the way that our organization runs on a regular basis, which will do wonders for how we compete in whatever arena you choose to be in.
Thank you for that. We have another question about diversity and kind of the business case for diversity, especially when it relates to innovation and new ways of doing business.
Yeah, totally. So diversity is a very interesting conversation because right now diversity is having a bit of a renaissance, especially when it comes to bringing in people who may not be the target audience for our business, or that may not fit the typical business mold or the mold for the organization that you work for. So two things: businesses that are able to innovate and take advantage of diversified opinions do 15 to 20% better when it comes to their income. And this is a proven statistic, and I'm happy to model this out in Excel for you. They're able to perform 20% better when it comes to their securities if they are on an S&P 500 or in a securities market. The other thing that we have to realize is diversification from a people, talent, but also from an asset and idea perspective also garners so much more weight and so much more ability to bring in a better bottom line. And there are studies upon studies that actually encourage this. And this is why diversity, whether it be of diversity of thought or diversity of people, is not just a meme or it's not just a PR stunt. There are actual grounded statistics that show, for example, in the last 10 years, companies that are more diverse in thinking actually perform 17% greater than the average ETF within a capital markets framework. And these are just things that are facts. So we can't ignore facts unless we choose not to believe empirical evidence.
Thank you for that clarification. That's helpful. And I have to say, I guess tied into some of these concepts is I know travel can help open your mind and look at the world in different ways. And I want to say I appreciate that you are normally in Toronto, but doing this presentation from Istanbul, Turkey. Is there some experience share that you can provide us from your travels?
Yeah, anytime I get to come out to Europe or Eurasia, I'm always reminded that North America thinks they're the center of the universe, but they're really not. And we can learn so much from our brothers and sisters and friends who live abroad, from the way that we look at our lives to what matters to us in the long term. And I think the minute we start to differentiate our view from the traditional Western view, we actually open ourselves long term.
Wonderful. Thank you. I hope you enjoy your time there.
It's been fun so far.
Good, good. We've got one more question.
Sure.
Do you have any tips on how to innovate in a space that is bogged down by bureaucracy?
Ooh, with 1 minute to go. How do you innovate in a space that's bogged down in bureaucracy? I live by a rule that says I am going to, and this is controversial, but I'm going to go and do things and apologize later. And I think if we as employees and as leaders are able to show value for the things that we are doing, whether it's side of desk, we start to change the opinions of those who are judging and measuring our success. If we start to instill that idea and prove that the things that we're doing and the innovative ideas that we're exploring actually work, then people will be receptive to it. We are creatures who love to see empirical evidence, and we can build tons of frameworks around this to make sure that it's possible. And I wish I had more time to talk about this, because I have notes and notes and notes on how we've achieved this in the past. Hopefully for another time, Teresa, but that's at least the start of it.
Thank you so much for that. And again, I want to close with much appreciation to you, Fenton, as well as to our engaged audience today. I want to share a few comments that are coming in already. Veronica says, very insightful and interesting presentation. Carrie, fabulous presentation, very insightful. Love your passion. Amazing presentation with lots to think about. So thank you again, Fenton, and to our audience and our team. As mentioned, we are here on a regular basis, usually every 2 weeks. We've got a bonus session coming up next Wednesday at the same time with speaker Alfredo Tan, who's an innovation executive with Rogers, Facebook, WestJet, Instagram. So we hope you will join us then. And we are here to help you source great speakers for your conferences and events. And hopefully Fenton is someone that might resonate with your organization. So stay curious, and we will see you again soon. Thanks all.
Bye, everyone.